Hello, friends, and welcome to this week's episode of Everything Went Black. Please welcome back Champ Morgan, my good friend and recurring guest. It seems fitting that every few months Morgan comes back on the show, mainly for us to catch up and to talk about a bunch of other stuff. You'll know Morgan from the legendary Kill the Client, Texas Grindcore, Monsters, Triage, Black Ops, and a bunch of other stuff. This week, Morgan is coming back on to discuss the dark years of Black Sabbath. I'm not sure how much everyone really knows or cares about the 90s version of Black Sabbath, but several records came out. Most people think of Ozzy, Dio. There's that debate as to, it's some people don't think of it as being debatable, but there is a debate out there about Dio versus Ozzy. But there's been a bunch of other guys who sang in the band, different configurations of Black Sabbath, different sounds that they played around with, and we focused on that. Some of those records are interesting. I would never put anything up from that period against like Paranoid or Heaven and Hell or anything like that. But there's definitely some gems in there, some lesser gems, shall we say. Before we get into the show, I just want to shout out the rest of the horsemen of the podcast apocalypse, a group of elite content creators, and together we wage a war against mediocrity. And boy, let me tell you, there's a lot of mediocrity out there. Kicking things off on Mondays, every other Monday, Brandon Legion brings us Horror Wolf 666. Tuesday, Jackie Smith brings us the finest metal podcast in the land, Into the Necrosphere. Wednesday, of course, is Everything Went Black, as well as Iblis Manifestations, brought to you by Cheyenne of the great band Trivax. Thursday is Necro Thursday with the Necromaniacs Horror Podcast, where I talk about horror films alongside Mike Scandato and Jeff Kashid. Friday is Spitball Media featuring Mike Scandato's brother, John Draper. Saturday is a day off, but Carl Hikara comes back on Sundays with Soul Knocks. Sunday and Thursday, by the way, for all things dark, macabre, mysterious, and esoteric. Carl and I have been hard at work doing the Darkness Weaves collaboration, where we discuss the work of Carl Edward Wagner. And currently, we're working through the Kane short stories. Soon we'll be up to the novels, so that should be a lot of fun. Probably some multi-part episodes, I imagine. If you want to support the show, please share, give us some reviews, talk about it to your friends, or if you really want to put your money where your mouth is, join the Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you get bonus content. For $5 a month, you get bonus content plus early access to the episodes. And for $25 a month, you can become a sponsor. As usual, it's great to see you, man. And I'm glad we're doing this via Zoom with the video option clicked on so I can behold your handsome visage, man. So it's great.
There you go.
Yeah.
I can't have a conversation with you without staring into those steely blue eyes. That cold blue steel.
That's awesome, man. So what have you been up to, man, besides nearly getting killed on the highway?
Oh my God, dude. I came so close to dying the other day. You called me, and I sincerely appreciate your call. But
of course, dude.
So knee deep in work, but the longer that day went on, like the more my brain just like fucking making me. Ooh, it was bad times. But luckily, I didn't die. It was close. It was fucking crazy. But right now, it's like lots and lots of work. Work has me just fucking swamped. Trying to keep my workouts going as always, and then just writing. Getting ready to write a new Triage record, writing new music for Black Ops, and trying to keep some other projects happening or in the process of or whatever. But it's just work has, there's supposed to be a minimum of 4 guys there doing the jobs, and there's only 2 of us. So it's
Oh
like,
man.
you know, 45, 50 hour weeks right now are pretty common.
Yeah, that's that can only you can only keep a pace up like that for a while, then you get burned out. You know,
Yeah.
I understand that pace, man. Believe me, definitely.
And I'm not a young man anymore. I'll be 53 in like, I don't know, about a week or something like that. One of those. It's just like, you know, I just can't keep this pace up. And I've been trying so hard. I mean, I've been in this industry since '96, doing alarms and fire alarms and stuff. And it's like, how am I still in the field? Almost 30 years down the road. Like, fuck, am I that much of an asshole that they don't want me in the office? Like, fuck. Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough gig, man, for sure, you know. But so the reason why one of the reasons why we're getting together tonight is to actually I'll tell you why I asked you to do this. Because you'd sent me a link to a podcast that you were on. Was that fairly recent or was that like a couple months ago? But I listened to it like maybe a week ago.
No, it was only like 2 weeks ago, maybe.
All right.
It's
Okay.
real recent.
Yeah. All right. So the episode actually is pretty recent. It's you know very very cool exploration of various records and all that. And when you touched on Sabbath. I think I was texting you about it because we were talking about Dio, and we got into this exchange about what I'm going to refer to as the dark years of Black Sabbath. You know, the forgotten years, which I wonder if even how many people even realize that Sabbath, and we'll get into this for sure, but technically never really broke up. You know what I mean? And so anyone out there who's wondering what the hell we're talking about, definitely hit me up and I'll listen to this episode and let me know if you guys have even were aware of some of these records that we're going to talk about tonight. And yeah, it's just like a weird phenomenon that I'm sure Tony Iommi just would rather never speak about because you read his biographies and things like that, and a lot of stuff gets shed on, a lot of light gets shed on that period, you know. So yeah, I just figured you and I could talk about some of the things. You mentioned something in that episode which resonated with me about Ronnie James Dio. And so yeah, I just want to get into all that stuff with you because I don't think you and I both love Sabbath, but I don't think we ever had a conversation like this before, you know.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had a super in depth, like nerd level deep dive into the years of Sabbath that weren't Sabbath. I mean, when they hired Ronnie James Dio, they wanted to change the name anyway. They
Okay.
didn't want to be. They didn't want Tony Iommi and Geezer didn't want it to be Black Sabbath anymore. They wanted to separate themselves from that, and that's really where the beginning point of this whole thing starts. Is because the record label stepped in and was just like, "Look, you signed like a 20 album deal, and we're going to hold you to it. So literally everything you're going to do is going to be called Black Sabbath, and if you do anything outside of that, we're going to sue you."
Oh Jesus. Yeah.
So they've got Iommi by the nuts. you know
So let me ask you a question. What was the first Black Sabbath record that you heard? And I think I know the answer to this, but go ahead. I want to hear it from you.
the first Black Sabbath song that I remember hearing was Mob Rules, because I was watching the animated movie Heavy Metal on
Yeah.
HBO, like back in when I was in junior high. It was, fuck, what year was that? Like 80. Heavy Metal came out in like 83 or 84, maybe something like that. And I just
I think
remember,
I,
like, go
I
ahead.
think it's like 82-ish, maybe.
Well,
It might
yeah,
have been like
maybe.
82. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't remember. All I know is I was in junior high, and I was just starting to get into what would be considered metal and all of that stuff. And I was watching that movie, and I was like, man, this fucking movie's crazy as fuck. Then the end with that big war scene, and it's like Mob Rule starts fucking playing, and all these people are just like fighting in the huge battle and all that. And I was like, this fucking rules. Like, this is the fucking sickest shit. And then I was just like, saw the soundtrack, somewhere, and it's like, man, I didn't even know it was Black Sabbath. I didn't even know what Black Sabbath really was at the time. But then that same Christmas, I got like a fucking cassette player, like a boombox for
Yeah,
Christmas,
exactly.
and then Rock 100, the cat out of Oklahoma City, we could pick up in Enid where I live, and then which was like a classic rock station, but they would also play metal. I mean, they would play some cool shit. Like you would hear anything from uh like first Black Sabbath, like then when I heard Black Sabbath, I was like, this doesn't sound like what I saw in this movie, you know. But then you would hear like Rat and Dokken and then Iron Maiden, and then they would also play like Stevie Ray Vaughan and Led Zeppelin and Foghat and Boston. It was like a really cool station, and it really opened me up to like a lot of music back then. But
Yeah,
the first,
that sounds like a station I used to call I-95, which came out of I want to say Hartford, Connecticut, because New York State, where I grew up, was right on the border between of Connecticut and New York State. So I would get a lot of the Connecticut stations. Or maybe I-95 was out of New York City. I don't remember. No, it's WNEW 95 because it had all the shows that went to like the Hartford Civic Center. They would talk about the tours going through that venue. So yeah, similar type of setup. Just all the sick like late 70s, early 80s, like hard rock, like heavy metal, borderline heavy metal stuff, definitely.
yeah, I mean, and I'm sure that those stations were all over the United States at that time because it was, classic rock was kind of on the out, and then stuff like Motley Crue and all that stuff. All that stuff was just starting to get to percolating. So there's a lot of musical crossover radio station wise back then. But that radio station really opened me up to a lot of stuff. But I know the first time that I heard like the song Black Sabbath, was on that station, and I was just like, what? This is not at all what I saw in this movie.
Yeah, totally, man. Because the same thing happened to me. Like I also my first my entry point into Black Sabbath was Heaven and Hell, like that record. Like this kid that was like a few years older than me. Like our families are friendly and like my friend, the guy I hung out with mostly was the same my age, and then he had an older brother, and this dude was like deep into like music. Yeah, the other kid that I hung out with, we were more friendly with like sports and stuff, but his older brother was like not really into sports, but into like music, and he would always turn me on to like all the cool shit. You know what I mean? Like I would tape records off of him all the time and that kind of thing, and he played Heaven and Hell. And I remember being really, I kind of, I was a young kid. So I'm like, oh, it sounds like some satanic, like evil heaven and hell. There's like these angels on the front that like smoking cigarettes. I don't know that my parents are going to be mad at me if I bring this home. So I
Yeah.
better record it here on a cassette tape and bring it clandestinely back to my room and listen to it. So yeah, the same thing. And then another friend, his older brother had, we sold our souls for rock and roll, and that was apples and oranges with the Dio stuff. You know what I mean? And I was like, it took me a minute to really reconcile those two things. So I guess this leads into our discussion of like, are they two different bands? And you touched on it earlier. Conceptually, they actually are two different bands as far as
Yes.
like Iommi, like in his mind.
Yeah, very much so. They wanted to get away from being Black Sabbath and sounding like Black Sabbath. And you can just tell by the level of playing that's on Mob Rules and Heaven and Hell. Like the solos, everything's faster. They still got big riffs and all that stuff, but it's just like it's not slow. Like kind of the groove is gone. Now it's more driving. It's more, like staccato picking, like more metalish and less brutish and like dark.
Yeah. And now, if you think about it, like Black Sabbath's first record came out in 1970 and Heaven and Hell came out in 1980. So that's a decade, right? And I guess like one of the things I never really appreciate is I just look at their music as this one monolithic slab of like material. I don't think about it covering the the sort of years that it covers. And I'm like, okay, 10 years. That's like most bands don't even make it to be 10 years old. Their careers end way before they get to be 10, have 10 years under their belt, you know?
Yeah, that's a long time for most bands. 10 years of output.
Yeah. Um, so with that said, the changes within Sabbath, like even, and what I'm about to say is probably going to be blasphemy to some people. Okay. I, out of the Ozzy years, I really only play the first four albums. I might play Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath here and there. I totally skip Sabotage, Technical Ecstasy, and Never Say Die. I never listen to those records ever.
Sabotage has some good songs on it.
Okay.
It's not necessarily a great record. It has some good songs. Just like Sabbath Bloody Sabbath.
Yeah.
Sabbath Bloody Sabbath is a good record. It's not a great record. It has like two great songs, and then the rest are kind of meh, you know.
Yeah.
But this is the thing, like what we had kind of talked about earlier. It's like this is when the cocaine starts, you know, when they can afford it, and it's just like it starts sounding, you know, less. The songs getting lesser and lesser, like because Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die are fucking terrible.
Yeah.
You know, it's like what Zero the Hero is like the only song between those, and maybe rock. What is it? Rock and roll. Can't even remember.
Zero the Hero is on Born Again, I believe. That was like the Ian
Is
Gillan
it?
track. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm either there's like maybe a single song, maybe two tops between those two albums that are actually listenable.
Yeah.
Because
I
they're
have
terrible.
all, yeah. I mean, I have all these albums, but I
Oh,
never,
I
like,
own
I
them
have to.
all.
Yeah, I have to, you know, but it's like, it's getting back to what we were saying earlier about records we never listened to. They're still haunting our collection, you know,
Yeah,
I'm never going to get rid of them though. I'm never going to sell any of those records. But
yeah,
so by the time 78 rolled around, Sabbath really was kind of limping along. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah,
Eh,
when they get to the Dio times, because they fired Ozzy because he's a fucking like a doped out bag of shit, but they liked Ozzy because he was easily controlled. He's the fun, good
Obviously.
time guy. Like, oh well, you want me to sing this? Oh, you know, but he had a good hold of like vocal melody, but he's not really a good singer. Um, but he's easily controlled, right? So then when they fire him, there's 2 years goes by before they start talking to Dio, and that record comes out. So then, you know, also too, Bill Ward is gone. Bill Ward and Ozzy are tight. The two tight people are on the other side of the coin. That's Geezer and Tony. So then they bring in Dio and Vinny Appice.
Vinny Appice, yeah.
You know, both old school Italian dudes. Um, and Dio was a fantastic writer, a fantastic singer, but he's also very driven. You know,
Professional
he's
guy.
very professional, very principled, and ultimately what brought that to an end was they couldn't push him around because he would stand up for himself. Like these records should not sound this way. You know, and the whole issue with like sneaking in at night and changing the mixes, that never, Dio in his biography said that never even happened. Those dudes were so coked out, they would show up and then just start like changing things. He's like, I left. He's like, I just couldn't deal with it, so I left.
Yeah.
You know, and that was ultimately the end of that era of the band. You know, and that was only from 80 to 82. You know,
The really amusing thing about that relationship too is like Dio has always, even before he was a metal singer, he was a professional musician. You know what I mean? Like he sang in these more like vocal driven bands before he got into like playing heavy metal.
oh yeah,
So
he was in like doo wop band. He was
yeah,
like, you
he's a
know,
singer, a singer's singer, a musician.
yeah.
Yeah. And he
And
was
even
used to
before
being
that,
professional.
when he was a child, he was like a trumpet player.
Yeah, trumpet player. Yeah.
You know, and like his parents like drove him to do that stuff. You know, and then he started playing, you know, rock and roll and stuff like that. And he was playing bass, and then he started singing, and then he just started singing full time. And then, you know, Elf happened and all that, you know. That's
So
a
he
whole
was,
nother that's a whole nother podcast in itself
yeah.
right there.
So, so he was used to doing things a certain way. So, you touched on, he played in Elf, then he was in Rainbow, and Rainbow was all professionals. It was Richie Blackmore running the show. And then the amusing thing about it is like my impression of Black Sabbath is that they're almost like a band that you and I would know. You know what I mean? Like dudes that just played together that grew up in the same town and suddenly became by accident almost like
Yeah.
the biggest band ever. You know what I mean? Like creating heavy metal, but essentially. So they weren't on that professional page at this juncture when Dio joined the band. They were just used to like writing tracks, partying, hitting the road, and hoping for the best, basically. They didn't have that same discipline that a guy like Dio had. So obviously that relationship was pretty much doomed, I think.
Right. Um, and that's what happened. It was like, and I think in the beginning too, they were very much like kind of let the record label do the work that they didn't probably one even understand how it worked. And I'm sure that the
Yeah.
label was, probably a decent amount of a predatory being at that time, like taking advantage of these young dudes that don't know what the fuck is happening because it happened all over the record business.
Yeah, exactly. So they were just like beholden to the label. So Iommi's trapped in this prison of his own making, essentially, stuck to this name Black Sabbath and trying to make the best out of it. And you think about it, this is 1980 and now it's almost 2024. So he has been shackled to this thing this in all these decades of time, you know. Isn't that crazy to think about?
Yeah, I think what happened is the when they tried to change the name when they hired Dio, the record label's just like, we own you, and he just kind of like bit the bullet and accepted it because he didn't have the money to fight it, and he's on a mountain of cocaine at the time too. They had a cocaine budget that was almost the same as their studio budget, but he just accepted it, and he just in my thing my what we talked about, like I think that's how this timeline happens. It happens along a line of I need to do this to keep myself afloat financially, and he'll just move from person to person and lineup to lineup just to like dot the i's and cross the t's and like, oh well, here's another album off of this contract that I can't get out of. So then he just accepts it for what it is, and even though it's the name Black Sabbath, it's really just Tony Iommi pushing things forward for close to 20, yeah, 20, almost 30 years
Yeah.
until the reunion stuff starts happening in the mid 90s.
What a hell to be stuck in, dude. It's like when you think, like when you really stop and think about it, it's like, you know, guys like us playing bands, we admire someone like Tony Iommi. We think of him as like, this like innovator, which he is. Oh yeah, that guy must be like just living the life. However, we never think about what his actual responsibility is. Like this guy he's like can never get away from this thing. Whenever if he wants to make a record, it has to be a Black Sabbath album. And he's just trapped in this like box. And it's like really interesting to think about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, oh, yeah, and how it's I don't know how am I going to say this because I'm sure everything we've said so far is probably just is going to get some people bent the wrong way because there's the
Nah, who
two.
cares? I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck. Like,
Too old for that stuff, man.
yeah, uh, but he's just like in the middle of it, and he just can't. It's like you can't since you can't beat it, you just join it. You know what I mean? Like he
Yeah.
can't beat the record company, so it's just like, all right, fuck it, I'm just going to do this. So in the '83 when they did Born Again, because Dio had gotten pissed off, and Vinny Appice, Dio and Appice were like fucking besties, and
Yeah, he
they left
took him along. It took him along to form Dio, and they
to,
made
to
yeah,
form Dio, who made an incredible record in 1983. On the flip side of that, Geezer and Tony are like coke to the nines, broke, and they're like, we have to do something. Like, who are we going to bring in? So they bring in fucking Ian Gillian from fucking Deep Purple, their longtime friend, and I can see this thing like happening at like a pub or something where they're just like, "Oh man, it would be great if you came in," like this whole like they're doing bumps of coke and fucking talking. Oh, it's gonna be so sick. It's gonna be so It's like their party buddy. Like you bring in your fucking party buddy. And who's in deep and is an incredible singer. Like theoretically, Born Again should fucking rule. It should be
Exactly.
it should be fan on paper. It should be fucking like holy fuck. Like this is some next level shit, and it's not. It's a good record. It's a decent record, but it sounds terrible. It sounds terrible.
Yeah.
And even the remixes they did in like 2005, and then another one I think in 2019 are bad. They're just bad because it was recorded on like a fucking shoestring budget. The production is fucking terrible. They spent more money on cocaine than they did on fucking production, any of those things, studio and all that. And then the record showed for it. And
Yeah, it's like I remember as a young kid hearing about them, reading about it in like Hit Parader or some whatever like heavy metal magazine I was reading at the time, and I loved Deep Purple, especially the era that Gillan was in, and I was like, wow, this is going to be an incredible album. And then when it came out, it just I like tried so hard to be into it, and it just at the time I was completely let down. However, looking back, going back and listen, I listen to that record every now and then. I think it's decent, but it suffers from the things that you talked about, like not very inspired, probably inspired by the wrong things, like horrible production. And yeah, I agree with you on the remixes. I've listened to some of the remixes and they're still not that great.
yeah, it's because the baseline product is so so
Yeah, it's just
bad.
lacking. Yeah.
Yeah, you just can't get it. That needs to go to like, let somebody like James Plotkin remix and remaster that thing, or like what's his name? The Earhammer guy. What's his name? Why I do this every time. I never can remember his name. The dude that he he mixed a lot of the early Brutal Truth records and uh what is his name? Either way, I'm not gonna get hung up on it.
Yeah.
But someone else needs to remix and remaster this record because it could be good. It could be, but it's not. But also at the end of Born Again, and a basically non-existent tour cycle, Geezer quits. He's done.
Yeah.
So now,
Actually, that's the thing. They didn't tour the States on this one.
yeah,
They didn't,
there
they
was like
never,
the album tanked. Like nobody wanted to see it, and people just like nope. So the money goes away, and then Iommi and Geezer get into it, and Geezer quits. So like, you can fucking have it. Like this is fucking bullshit. I'm not doing this anymore. And so 3 years passes, and he does Seventh Star, which is not a bad record, right? This is in '86.
yeah. We got a guy named Glenn Hughes coming in on vocals.
Yeah, Glenn Hughes, who was in Deep Purple, and he
Right.
was also in Trapeze. Uh, some pretty high register, pretty high soaring vocals. Um, and this record's not bad. It's just it's like very commercial. It's very 1986.
This is when, all right. So up until now, I feel like Iommi's at least trying to like make quality music. You know what I mean? Like I feel like, especially with the Dio version of the band, like he was writing songs that were inspired. Okay. Born Again, I think he tried. I think that it was like an effort was put into this thing. But by the time like Seventh Star comes out, I think that the this happens. You can tell this happened to a lot of bands where they're losing sight of what maybe inspired them originally, and they're looking outside of maybe their toolbox to find inspiration. And I feel like on Seventh Star, that's kind of like when that started with this whole
cycle of like making music for with an end, a specific end in mind. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I agree
Yeah.
because it's when from here, literally from here on out, uh, with the exception of one, with the exception of Dehumanizer, every single one of the records from this point on is very much in whatever the modern hip sound is at that time. There's
Yeah.
always there's always the Tony Iommi feel, but from literally every record from here on out sounds like whatever's cool at the time.
Well, I'm even going to say that I feel like literally because I hadn't just the past week I revisited all these albums and I hadn't really listened to them since at least 15 years probably since I did anything like this because my old roommate and I we wait maybe even longer than 15 years ago we were like suddenly exploring all this shit again. We were like, oh, let's listen to this record or whatever, you know. Um, and the riffs could anyone could have written those riffs. The only
It's
thing
very uninspired.
Yeah, the only thing that sounds like Iommi was enjoying was playing the solos because the solos have that Iommi sort of bluesy vibe to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and he can play like, I mean, just the difference between when Ozzy was the singer and Dio was the singer, the solos just went from like real kind of cool solos, but nothing like what they were on Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules. Like he really started like motherfucker, I can play. Like look at this
Yeah,
shit,
yeah,
And then
totally.
you start getting here into the mid '80s, and now it's like little, he's like kind of shredding on a lot of it. It's like
Exactly. Yeah.
lots of notes and lots of expression. Um, Even the single on this one, like No Stranger to Love, that sounds like a mix of, it sounds like late era Rainbow and late era Deep Purple mixed together. It doesn't even sound like Black Sabbath. You know what I mean? It's like he brings in Glenn Hughes from the later era of of Deep Purple, and then there's a super commercial song, which is the reason. I mean, commercial songs is the reason that Dio left Rainbow, because he was, the record label was like sweating them, and Richie Blackmore like is like, man, they're trying to make us write hits. And Dio's like, well, tell them to fuck off. We're selling out arenas with no hits. But then he's like, well, I don't know. And then, the next thing you know, the whole band's gone. And Blackmore rebuilt it, with Glenn Hughes on vocals. It's like how those things kind of chain together. And now Iommi's doing the same thing with the same people.
So now originally the Seventh Star album wasn't even written as a Black Sabbath album. It was supposed to be the Tony Iommi project, which is I think what Iommi was like pitching to Glenn Hughes. And Glenn
Right.
Hughes had no interest at all in being in Black Sabbath, apparently.
Right.
He's like, oh, that's sick. I'll join the Tony Iommi project. And then
Yeah.
like, but then they write all this material. Then like Iommi's like, oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to tell you, this is Black Sabbath.
Yeah, exactly. Because Hughes probably didn't want to be involved in it, because now he's following
Yeah.
former Deep Purple singer Ian Gillan. He
Yep.
doesn't want to walk in those same steps, especially with the monumental failure that Born Again was financially.
Yeah.
And also it's like, this is such a commercial record, and there's some good there's some good songs on it. They're listenable. It's not an unlistenable album, because believe me, an unlistenable Black Sabbath album is on deck
Oh yeah.
and
Oh yeah. No,
and
I hear you.
and coming up. But
Yeah.
it's, to me, it just doesn't even sound like Black Sabbath. It just sounds like Rainbow and Deep Purple mixed together.
I mean, yeah, as a fan, I kind of, like this is something you throw on when you're driving across like Arizona or something like that on your way to California. You know what I mean? You're like you got a long drive, you're in the van, and you put on Seven Star. You know what I mean? It's like
If you can separate your brain from the band being called Black Sabbath and just being like, oh, it's just some random band, it's a listenable, good record. But
yeah.
when you attach the weight that it is the Black Sabbath moniker to it, then the parameters change. At least they do in my brain.
So
But
there's a couple of fun facts about this era of the band too. So Glenn Hughes apparently got into a fight with the production manager and days before the tour. So did not actually go on the road with the band. And some guy named Ray Gillen joins up to there was a tour that was booked with Wasp and Anthrax,
mhm,
which got most of the dates got canceled due to poor ticket sales.
right.
What a drag.
Well, this some guy named Ray Gillen is the guy that started the band Badlands
Yeah.
with Jakey Lee, and that band absolutely fucking rules. Because what happened with that, because Eric Singer was in this group of what was Black Sabbath, and he eventually went. He was in Badlands, and then went on. He was in Kiss forever.
Oh yeah, that's right. He was in Kiss. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he
Eric
was in
Singer.
Kiss.
Yeah, I forgot
Yeah,
about
for
that.
like
Decades,
decades,
yeah.
and so him and Ray, they're just like, fuck this shit. This thing is a fucking train wreck, and they quit because there was no money. All the tour shit got canceled. Like everything just got pulled out from under them. And because Glenn Hughes is a crazy motherfucker too, that's why he got into a fight with, because he's a fucking cocaine party guy too. So those dudes left and created Badlands, which was awesome. The shitty thing about Ray Gillen was he was like a super good looking dude. And there were a lot of chicks. And he was that I'm the hot singer dude. Um, got diagnosed with AIDS
Oh
and
shit.
continued to have unprotected sex all the time and hurt a lot of people. And that is why there are no Badlands reissues, because all of the families of these people, of these ladies that he got sick and eventually died, and he died of AIDS, because the record label doesn't want to pay any kind of recoup money, which is shitty too. That's some
Damn.
fucking cold blooded shit, because there's two fantastic records with Jakey Lee on them, and those guys and those that were in that band have not made a fucking red cent off of it since the 80s, because their singer Ray, who had an amazing voice, was a fucking piece of shit, and he
Damn.
ended up hurting a lot of people.
I had no idea about that. Damn.
Oh yeah,
That's dark for sure.
Some of the darkest. You think like drugs and like all that type of shit is bad. Like when you have fucking AIDS and you just keep fucking like, hey, I'm just gonna pass it on, man. Cool, rock and roll, woo. Like I'm gonna be dead anyway. Like fuck you. Like
Yeah.
fucking, that's fucked up shit.
Yeah, fucking that's heavy, man.
Yeah. But that trying to change directions from that dark
Yeah.
that fucking dark path. Those guys left, and then of course the shit with Hughes, like you said, falls apart. So then he starts in '87. They do Eternal Idol, which is a great record. It's a great record because Black Sabbath is trying to sound like Whitesnake, and they do.
Yeah, they do.
It,
I prefer Eternal Idol over Seventh Star, actually. I think there's a little
100%.
more. Yeah, I kind of like Tony Martin is like, for all intents and purposes, is Black Sabbath singer for like the next basic decade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Except for the Dio record when Dio comes back. But he's essentially their singer now. He's their go-to guy.
Right. And that lineup becomes the off and on go-to. They jump back and forth between, like the same six people. But originally, Ray Gillen wrote and sang all the demo stuff for Eternal Idol. It wasn't Tony Martin at all. So they demoed everything and recorded it. And then, of course, money became an issue. Control becomes an issue. So that's when those dudes quit and leave, like, permanently. So then they come back in. That's when he calls Tony Martin, and Tony Martin comes in and then re-records everything that Ray Gillen did, and does a fantastic job, because Tony Martin is a fucking amazing singer. That dude's got some fucking pipes.
I think
Eternal
Excuse me. I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to cut you off there, Morgan. What were you going to say?
No, this album is again very much in the commercial mainstream of what's happening. It's very, Seven Star is very 86, 87 comes around, Eternal Idols, it's like this to me. It's a lot of it sounds like fucking Whitesnake, and I'm a Whitesnake fan. And
Yeah.
John Sykes from Whitesnake is an incredible fucking guitar player and writer. But this is like the Tony Martin era begins. Like, hey, can you sound like Whitesnake? And he's like, yes, because he didn't even write those. He didn't even get a chance to write those lyrics. That's all Ray Gillen's stuff. And
Another interesting thing happens around this time is they get dropped from their major label, and this record comes out on IRS Records, which is basically a new wave label. Like this,
yeah,
their label mates now with General Public, The Cramps, Wall of Voodoo, English Beat,
yeah,
band called REM. So it's like, I mean, nothing against those bands, but it's just this is like having gone through similar things like this in my life too, where it's like suddenly you got like a nice budget to make an album, and then you don't have that budget anymore, or like you have like tour support, and then you don't have tour support, and it's like,
yeah,
wow, that's a wake up call, man. You know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, and I think it's a giant wake up call for Iommi then too, because it's like he's literally watched the money go away 3 different times.
Yeah,
But every time he was on a major label until now. Now it's like you've taken even that bigger step down, and you're just like, fuck, like I'm fucking Tony Iommi, goddamn, like what,
yeah.
like this should not be happening,
And the other thing too is like, all right, 87, these next few years for heavy metal too in general are kind of darker years. Like we're getting into that realm where it's like the post LA thing is creeping up around this time, you know, and around 1990 is like when it's really uncool to be playing heavy metal music and being a big arena band,
yeah, oh, yeah,
like
very much that,
on that level, that is, you know what I mean?
for sure. There's definitely some musical undercurrents changing, because it's like arena shit is so big at this time, and there were so many bands that were just like trying to fucking find that, because like the Def Leppards and the Bon Jovis and the fucking White Snakes, like all those bands were just, paychecks were huge, stages were huge, but then the musicality of most of that's like, yeah, like really not even that big of a thing. But when all the money falls out of the bottom of it, and you're just like trying not to drown in debt while touring or making records, is where Iommi is at this time. And they toured, they did some stuff on Eternal Idol and kind of like recouped a little bit, but they didn't like fully get back into the studio because IRS they wanted another record. They owed
Yeah.
them they owed them that. And they were just like, all right, you shit the bed on this other thing, so let's get it going. And they recorded Headless Cross in 89. That came out in 89. And I think the reason that Headless Cross is a heavier record than what Eternal Idol was is because everyone was complaining, like Eternal Idol kind of sales, I mean, that was like, it didn't really do anything. People didn't like it because it was like super commercial and super polished and, white snaky, in my opinion. So now on Headless Cross, here comes some bigger riffs and some fucking darker tunings and some darker songs. And this is all written by Tony Martin. He hears the complaints, so it's like some really evil fucking lyrics all over fucking Headless Cross.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I noticed in this last time listening through, it's like, I'm not saying there's like satanic lyrics on there, but there's definitely like darker, or there's references to like, darker stuff on there. And
Oh, he talks about he talks about Satan on there,
yeah, yeah.
and like what's the lyric? The crucifix head to the
Yeah.
ground. And it's just like, and the power, like in the power of Satan, like he's like
Yeah.
really kind of getting into that part of it, which I
Yeah.
think that is fucking awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, like I love that shit. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
absolutely.
and just someone with like such clean and powerful vocals, like doing that, and you can kind of tell too, like maybe Ghost, maybe coughed a little bit, maybe listened to Headless Cross a couple of times before they started writing music and
Yeah.
doing that. You know what I'm saying?
Another notable thing about this too is Queen's Brian May rips a solo on one of these songs, When Death Calls. And Brian May is a
Which,
fantastic guitar player, big fan. And I like Queen too. So yeah,
oh hell yeah,
that's that's a notable thing. Cozy Powell joins the band, another they're more ex-Rainbow players. So he's another consummate professional in the mix here.
oh for sure, yeah. That lineup and that, I mean, of all of these records from '83 to like probably '93, Headless Cross is by far the best one. It's the heaviest one. It's the most
Yeah.
Sabbath, like real Sabbath sounding one, even though it's, 89, you're right on the borderline of when the '90s start, and, another shift in music starts in '90, and, but this is by far the best one of all of this decade of Iommi, of Iommi owing his fucking soul to the record company.
Yeah. Uh, so Tony figures give it another shot with a tour. So this time they try going out in the U.S. with Kingdom Come. Remember them?
Oh, from Holland,
Yeah, the
who
Dutch.
sounded they sounded just like Led Zeppelin, and then like,
Yeah.
we've never heard Led Zeppelin in our lives. Like
The Dutch Led
okay,
Zeppelin. Yeah.
yeah.
And then so this tour also gets canceled after 8 shows, and they're back going back home after that, you know.
Jeez.
So unsuccessful US touring. I actually saw Kingdom Come perform at the Monsters of Rock. I don't know if you remember that traveling festival tour.
Oh yeah, Monsters Rock.
Yeah. Did you ever see them? Did you check that out?
Um, I was not really old enough when Monsters of Rock was happening. I guess the closest I came to anything like that was like some of the like Clash of the Titans tour that was like
Yeah.
a global thing, which was like, I think in the States, I mean, I know for sure it was Slayer and Megadeth that were
Yeah.
through the whole thing. But in Europe, it was Slayer, Megadeth, Testament, and Suicidal Tendencies. Where in the States, I think it was Pantera and Alice in Chains, maybe.
It was definitely Alice in Chains. I do not remember Pantera being on that though. But I
Well,
remember, yeah, it was definitely Alice in Chains for sure.
yeah, because yeah, you're right. It was Alice in Chains and Anthrax, maybe.
Yes, it was Anthrax.
Yeah, because Suicidal, and Testament were Europe only, and then Anthrax and Alice in Chains was U.S.
I kind of wish it was I would have dug with Suicidal on that because that was like the was that the Lights Cameras Revolution tour. That was like
Yeah.
one of my one of the I'm gonna say it once again, probably something controversial. One of the last awesome Suicidal records, really.
Oh yeah, yeah. That
Yeah.
that to me, that when Suicidal like went fucking metal. I love those records. Join the Army, fucking Lights
Yeah.
Camera Revolution.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
totally.
all of those records are fucking just sick. They're so good.
Yeah, Kingdom Come on that Clash of the Titans tour or Monsters of Rock tour were getting stuff thrown at them. Everyone hated them. It was like they went off first at like noon or something like that. And
Yeah.
it was just
They
pretty
got
bad.
a well deserved booing.
Yeah, yeah. I saw him in New Jersey, so I don't know if the whole state was like that, but the whole country was like that. But the East Coast tri-state area fans did not appreciate them.
Yeah, you don't want to bring some fucking cake soft ass like pretty fucking Dutch dudes to like, oh, you're gonna open for fucking Slayer, like fuck.
Yeah. So the one interesting thing about this, even though their touring did not materialize for them in the States, this version of Black Sabbath played Russia with Girls School. So that's kind of cool.
Oh wow, really? I didn't. Okay,
Yeah.
that's one you. That's a name you don't hear that often.
No. I
Girls'
think that
school.
I believe that they've reunited actually, or at least they're doing some reunion touring.
Well, that's
So
cool.
yeah.
They Girls' School and Motorhead used to do a lot of shit together.
Yeah, yeah. They had like they collaborated on that track, Touch Too Much or what something. No, it's an AC/DC song.
Yeah, that's AC/DC.
Yeah, they did some stuff together musically. They were like tour buddies apparently.
Yeah, um, but yeah, it's kind of cool to see a lot of these old bands getting back,
Yeah.
doing some shit.
So now we're in the 90s, the decade that brought us Kurt Cobain and that sort of stuff. So 1990, uh Black Sabbath decides to release a record called Tyr, Tyr. I believe that's how it's pronounced.
Yeah, tier.
Yeah, once again, Tony Martin's on vocals. And this record was pretty unremarkable in my opinion. Um,
Yeah,
you know, there was a loose concept on this one that had to do with Norse mythology and runes and all this other stuff, which is cool.
which you of all people should be into.
Pretty cool, but like,
It fell short. Like every bit of it fell short. There was like
yeah,
effort wise, it was musically, it was kind of like a mix. It was like the middle ground between Eternal Idol and fucking Headless Cross. It's got some heavier parts, but it's also got like some fucking cheese ball shit in it.
oh yeah,
And it's just like the effort is lacking. Like everything on this album is lacking. It should be good, and it's just like there's just not enough put into it.
So at this stage, I still think that Headless Cross is the winner of
Oh,
the post Dio era of the band. Headless
one hundred
Cross
percent, one
still
hundred percent.
still definitely that's the top record in the post Dio version of Sabbath. Interesting. I'm a big, well, I wouldn't say big, but I like the first couple of Circus of Power records, and apparently Sabbath took them on tour in Europe, which was kind of cool. However, and this is a real slap in the face to the band and to Tony specifically, the final 7 UK dates were canceled due
Yeah,
to poor ticket sales.
yeah. My notes here says all the money goes away, everyone quits again.
Yeah. And once again, no dates in the United States. So they
Yeah,
never
there's
even come over
nothing.
here. Yeah.
Not yeah. It's just
Yeah.
like the bottom just keeps falling out. The money's not there. The commercial interest isn't there. The sales aren't there. And he's just like just trying to keep trudging forward, and he just can't do it. And also too, again, he's I think he's admitted to his cocaine issues for like
Yeah.
years and years and years. So the delusions of grandeur, plus it's like this, I am Black Sabbath. This is my thing. And I get that because he's the driving force for it the entire time. But not everybody likes to hear that, like, fuck, we're a band, we're kind of doing this together.
Yeah.
But then when you also like promised, the promise of money that never gets there, tour that never gets there, sales, like there's no payoff.
Now, ironically, probably the most unlikely success story out of the original Black Sabbath is Ozzy Osbourne eclipsing the career of Tony Iommi at this point with his Ozzy Osbourne experience.
Well, a lot of that success should be like laid at Sharon's feet, because she was the one that was the doing a not right. She didn't write anything, but like just keeping deals going,
Right.
and keeping that was better. And what's his name? Baisley, the guy that played keyboards, and
Yeah.
I mean, he wrote almost all of that. Even though he never gets any credit. Just like on Bark at the Moon and Ultimate Sin, like when you open up those records, it doesn't say like songs and music by like Jakey Lee and Baisley and like all Rudy Sarzo. It just says music. What is it? Songs and music by Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Bullshit. Yeah.
and Jakey Lee, like literally Jakey Lee wrote about 90% of Bark at the Moon. Him and Baisley wrote that shit together.
But also,
And same thing with Ultimate Sin, but then on those records, like they're so concerned with not paying anybody that they fuck everybody over. And then people quit. It's just like the same thing. Like you're so concerned about getting paid that you fuck everybody over. And then when you get caught fucking everybody over, everybody quits, and then you just rebuild it again. And it's just like that cycle of nonsense, really. It's kind of sad, honestly, in my opinion.
so definitely Sharon Osbourne is the linchpin in Ozzy's career, but also on like Ozzy had that stroke of sheer luck by getting a guy like Randy Rhoads for 2 records too.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah, that if there was no Randy Rhoads, all of the management, chicanery behind the scenes, deals would not have worked. I think if he had just had some run of the mill dude on guitar, the Ozzy Osbourne trip would have crashed. I think. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that original lineup of Ozzy is like one of the greatest lineups ever. Because you got, of course, at the mountaintop, you have fucking Randy Rhoads. But then you also have Rudy Sarzo on bass and
Yeah.
fucking the mighty Tommy fucking Aldrich on fucking drums. Like,
yeah, for Black Oak, Arkansas. Yep.
Dude, yeah, the fucking most powerful afro in all of metal. Fuck.
Hell yeah. I'm actually working on getting the most powerful afro and metal with my hair here. So
that's what I'm talking about. That's what cannot wait to see that. But yeah, it was that lineup like saved him, like saved his fucking life,
And that's the thing too about like when we first started talking about doing this, I started thinking about just the down and outness of like Ozzy's like killing it, in the late 80s, you know what I mean? And even through the 90s too. And
yeah, and Dio too during those
and
years.
Dio too. Yep.
Dio's fucking killing it. He had to double mortgage his house just to fucking pay for the recording of that first Dio record. But again, powerhouse fucking lineup, like unstoppable fucking lineup.
Good songs, great songs.
And Dio at the helm.
Yeah.
Dio never fucked anybody over. He helped everybody he could. He had solid records all the way,
Yeah. And yeah, so that's like happening. And Iommi is just like down and out, man. Like
yeah, he's like, how is this idiot clown Ozzy making all this fucking money?
Yeah.
And I'm fucking tooling along with all these fucking clowns. But that's actually a good segue into 1992's Dehumanizer, which is a return to the Dio era lineup of players. Geezer rejoins the band. Dio's back in the band. I think is it Kazi Powell or Vinny Appice on that one? I don't remember.
I don't remember either. But that's definitely like a legit version of the band. I think it might be Appice because I think it actually is like a version of Sabbath. You know what I mean?
It's the first like actual Sabbath lineup since it's basically like Heaven and Hell becomes Dehumanizer. 82, 10 years later, 92. It's exactly 10 years later, the same lineup. And now it sounds like Black Sabbath again. It's just like, and they've generated a lot of excitement again. It's just like, oh shit, like this is the real Black Sabbath, not all this other fucking clown car shit that we've been going through for a decade. Now it sounds like Heaven and Hell. Now it sounds like Mob Rules. It's back to that, and one of the factors in that is Dio was really driving that thing forward because he was like, look, if I'm going to step away from my own band to do this, like we're going to do it for real or I'm not going to do it. and he's pretty much in the driver's seat. You know, I mean, he gets Geezer back. Like they're a functioning. You know, they're firing on all 8 cylinders again.
Well, all is not well though behind the scenes because apparently
Oh,
during the during
yeah,
during the recording, Tony Martin is approached about even at that stage replacing Dio, and he bows out because he's working on his solo record. He's like, "Oh, you guys want me back now? You got your golden boy Ronnie James Dio singing, so old Tony Martin's not around to kick around anymore. So I'm working on my solo record.
yeah. But and that's the fucking problem with Iommi is that it gets back to fucking control. Like he doesn't ever want to give it up. He doesn't really see it as a band. It's just an extension of him. And he never wants to fucking give it up. And it's just like you've got this lineup back together. Just be a team for once.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
fucking once, dude.
The really interesting thing, the funny thing about it, I've always like wondered if Greg Ginn and Tony Iommi are similar personality types. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh god.
on a microcosmic level, I feel like the same thing was going on in Black Flag too. You know what I mean? Where it's like, for sure, like all the different guys in the band, different singers, control, like all that sort of stuff, but like for a way shorter period of time on a way lower scale though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that same mentality can be there, you know.
Yeah.
It's just you keep a band together until you piss somebody off so bad they quit. It's basically the same in Black Sabbath and in Black Flag.
Yeah. So Dio quits allegedly because he doesn't want to open for Ozzy on the Ozzy quote unquote farewell tour. So he's out of the band. I'm sure there's more
Well,
story to it than that.
there's way more story to it. It's not just being for like a tour thing. It was supposed to be a like a 20-year anniversary of Sabbath, right? And he's just and Dio's like, yeah, let's do it. And they're like, well, we're going to talk about having um like Ozzy play, and we want to do like a Black Sabbath set, of like a Sabbath reunion with Ozzy, but then we're going to play Dehumanizer songs as the opener.
Oh yeah.
And Dio's like, no, like you're really gonna like you fired this guy, you fired this clown, and now you're gonna like you expect me to like just be like, oh, I'm the guy that you hired originally to replace this guy because he couldn't fucking pull his weight, and now you expect me to step out of the way and open for this guy that I replaced. And this is all in Dio's autobiography. And then Iommi's like, yeah, this is what I expect you to do. And he was like, fuck
Yeah.
you. That's not what I do. I'm not the fucking opener. I've already rescued you from this guy once. And now you're expecting me to like take a knee, and like he won't do it. And I don't blame him. I wouldn't have done it either. But the one thing that did come out of that was cool is that they called Rob Halford for the show, and Halford showed up and sang like 5 songs with them, which are
Yeah.
fucking incredible.
I wish I had a recording of that stuff, man.
It's on YouTube. You can see it.
Oh,
On
I got to find it. But I wish there was like a bootleg of that. I'm trying to say.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. Oh
that
yeah,
would be
for
sick.
sure.
What are your thoughts on Dehumanizer as a record?
I like it. I like it a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, it's solid.
We had actually one of our long running jokes in Black Ops is like the amount of cover songs that we would be down to do.
Yeah,
And like we've always talked about Computer God, because since we have so much like noise and like electronic shit, we have always talked about maybe covering Computer God at some point in time, or TV Crimes. So that song fucking rules too. So, but I think it's a fucking really really good fucking record, and I wish it would have turned out better for him. But again, shitting on people, and everybody quits again. Woo! It's like The Tony Iommi story, you know.
All right, so now we're it's 1994. Heavy metal's not cool. At least not to like, the big crowds. It's in a few years it is going to come back though. So
There's
we
always it's always in a cycle.
yeah. So we got Tony Martin back in the mix, and we have Cross Purposes, a record which is critically panned. And as a matter of fact, one particular critic lists Super Unknown by Soundgarden as being the best Sabbath record to come out that year.
Which is probably true, because on Cross Purposes it sounds like Tony Iommi listened to a lot of Soundgarden and Alice in Chains, because
Yeah.
a lot of the guitar work is very Kim Thale and very Cantrell. Like even the way he does some bends and some certain stuff, I was just like, this dude listened to Alice in Chains a lot this week before he
This
got
week.
into yeah,
Yeah.
it was just like, holy fuck. It's got a heavier edge to it, because grunge was a little bit heavier because it's all down tuned and sludgy and dirty. But it's just like, again, you look at the year that it came out, and it sounds, there's a baseline of sounds that sounds like what's popular at that time.
And I actually think this isn't a bad album for the reasons you just mentioned, because it sounds like Sabbath again. There's like that kind of like dirtier vibe. It's like, heavier, but at this point, it's just like it's like too little too late. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, he's just trying to hang on. He's just
Yeah.
grasping at current straws, and Tony Martin does some really great vocals on this record. But still, it's just not there. The money's gone, the interest is gone. It's just like that wave is on the bottom side of the that's already crested in Dehumanizer, and now we're down in the swell, and it's not really doing anything. It's like in that same cycle over and over and over again.
So
But
I didn't know this, but apparently Eddie Van Halen wrote a song co-wrote a song called Evil Eye, which was uncredited on this record. I don't know if you knew that or not.
That I did not know.
Yeah. And Eddie Van Halen is notoriously a huge Tony Iommi Black Sabbath fan, so that must have been, a thrill for him.
Yeah, I mean, for both of them, like that's like one of those things. It's like, oh shit, Eddie Van Halen's going by the studio today, and then when Eddie's leaving, it's just like, holy fuck, I'm gonna go hang out with Tony Iommi.
Yeah. On the tour, they did tour, and this had Morbid Angel and Motorhead on this tour. It was kind of cool,
What?
actually. Yeah,
that would be fucking sick.
Yeah, totally, man.
To see Motorhead, Morbid Angel, and Sabbath.
Yeah,
dude, that would be sick. That I would be into.
I remember Morbid Angel and Motorhead toured on their own again back in the early 2000s, like 2000, maybe 4 or 5 or something like that. I remember that tour.
Well, once you get into that lineup and era of Morbid Angel, I'm kind of out.
Oh, you're not into that, like the Gateways to Annihilation era of the band?
Well, I mean, just anything after that. I mean, Gateways is okay, but there's some just like straight garbage after that.
I like Gateways. I think that record's pretty solid. It's like a different sound for them, but I think it's a pretty sick record, actually.
Yeah, that's what Tucker. That's when Tucker's in the band, right?
Tucker. Yeah, William Tucker was on that.
Yeah, that dude's fucking. He's good.
Yeah, totally, man. Geezer leaves now to form GZR. Do you have you heard that record, the Geezer record?
Yeah, because who he has like a pretty all-star lineup of vocalists that come in and out on that one too.
Yeah, but the songs are just like not that
bad.
They're pretty weak. So back to the drawing boards with Tony Martin on vocals again, and we have probably the worst Sabbath album ever written, called Forbidden, and it should be forbidden for anyone to listen to this record.
Yeah, it should be. This is like inhumane punishment for prisoners level fucking terrible record. No effort, no effort in the even the vocals are bad because Tony Martin's not even trying.
Yeah.
They're just trying to like get it done to get the contract closed out. This album is 100% terrible. Like it is the fucking worst. Oh god. And then and this is the thing, like they just released like this Tony Martin era Black Sabbath box set.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
That's kind of worth getting, I think.
It is. I got it. I fucking pre-ordered it as soon as it fucking came out. Um, but what's weird and makes no fucking sense is in this box set, you get a new remix and remaster of Forbidden, which is straight fucking garbage. And inside is no Eternal Idol. Why would I get a record that is terrible when you could have at least had Eternal Idol, which was a decent record, and Tony Martin's doing the vocals? I don't know if there's something because Ray Gillen, Ray that did all
yeah. Yep.
If
Horrible
since he
things.
wrote, since he did terrible shit, and record labels don't want to pay people, pay things that came out in court. That's the only thing I can think of is since he gets credit on the record that they don't want to put that record out again because of residuals. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, that's probably exactly why that was left out of that.
But I still would have left Forbidden off of this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like just make the box set a little smaller and don't embarrass yourself because this record's embarrassing.
It's pretty much unlistenable and a real drag. And this actually was kind of like the nail in the coffin for the band. For at least for a few years. So
yeah, but this is like this is the thing. This is when Tony Iommi's like so down and out that the beginnings of the talks for the first full Sabbath reunion start.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because those talks started happening when this thing just completely shit the bed. So one way to think about it is Iommi's so down and out that he has to be like, fuck, I need to call and apologize to these guys that I've shit on over and over again. And like now, because people are just like, 30-year, Sabbath is coming up on 30 years and all that talk and, heavy metal's getting, starting to fucking happen again. Like, mid-90s, this is when metal's like a fucking Pantera is fucking huge,
Yeah.
Sepultura is fucking huge, like metal is on the way back. Well, who created heavy metal? Black Sabbath created heavy metal.
Exactly.
So then he's like starting to see like fucking, there's some fucking real dollar signs could happen here.
Now this is the real bummer. Okay, it's say 1997. Say it's this time of in history. Let's go all the way back to the songs that are going to be in the set list. All right. The problem. All right. No Dio stuff. So, and nothing in the 80s. Okay. Never Say Die, Technical Ecstasy, Sabotage. So 75, 76, 78. Probably nothing off of those records. The song Sabbath Bloody Sabbath off of Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. That we're starting to get into the set list. So the set list for a band performing in 1997 is going to consist of songs written in 1970, 1971, and 1972. Just those are the only years that anyone really gives a shit about. None of that Tony Martin era, no Glenn Hughes, no Dio, no Gillen, no one. That's all anyone wants to hear when these guys finally reunite in 1997 or whatever, thereabouts.
Yeah. Which is crazy. And I would bet money right now if you randomly picked a person that you knew and you ask them the question, what's your favorite Tony Martin era Black Sabbath song? And they'd be like, who?
Yeah, they would. Yeah,
they
exactly.
wouldn't even fucking know. They wouldn't even know.
Yeah. Yeah. People completely, it's like, that's been removed from the whole continuum of the band, even though like, and and it shows because like they couldn't sell a single ticket really to go on tour and see these guys play on the road. So it's like, yeah, it's like the forgotten years of the band.
Well, and that's also why I bought this box set because I thought it was crazy they even did it. It's like there's some good songs in there. I like Eternal Idol and Headless Cross is great. Headless
Yeah,
Cross is
Headless Cross is a good record. Headless Cross is a
fucking
good
great
album.
record.
Yeah.
I bought that album when I was in Germany. We had taken a bus tour on a weekend, and we were going to Bitburger beer.
Yeah, I heard it. Yeah, yeah, I've seen that over in Europe. Yeah,
Yeah, right. So they brew that in Bitburger, Germany, and there's Bitburger Castle. So we're taking a bus tour to go down there to do this castle tour and like tour the fucking beer factory and all that shit, right? Um, so we stop in Bitburger before we actually go to the castle. We had lunch, and when I was sitting there eating, I see that there's a fucking a record store across the street. So I roll over there, and they had like a whole like cardboard like stand up shelf that was the cross, like the cross that's the album.
oh hell yeah, that's pretty sick.
And the CDs were in it, and I was like, I snapped that bitch. I
Hell
bought
yeah.
it, and it had the German promo sticker,
Oh,
like,
cool.
and I had that. I had that CD. It has like the fucking poster inside of it, and I gave that CD to Nate Garrett from Spirit Adrift. He lives here in Bastrop too, and he's
Yeah,
a good
yeah,
friend of
Nate's a
mine.
good dude. Yeah.
And he loves that album. And we were talking about it one day, and I was like, "Oh, dude, you like that era of Black? So you like Headless? Oh, dude, like Headless Cross." So I went in and like it took me like an hour and a half just to dig it out of my stuff, but I found it and I fucking gave it to him for his birthday.
Hell yeah.
And he was like, "Oh fuck, you really gonna give this to me?" I was like, "Yeah, dude." He's like, "Man, these things go for a good amount of money online." I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Like, you're my friend. Like, you're the only other person that I know that actually knows this fucking record exists, and you love it. So I just gave it to him, like fucking gifted it to him.
That's cool, man. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's like they did this box set of an era of Black Sabbath that no one knows or gives a fuck about. Which
I got
I'm glad for Tony Martin because hopefully Tony Martin finally made some money off of his time in Black Sabbath because he didn't do it at the time.
so now we're the band is pretty much done, kind of. You know what I mean? Of course, in 2013 there would be the record 13, which came out, with Ozzy singing in the midst of the fervor of the Black Sabbath original lineup reunions and tours and all this other stuff that happened. There would also be the band Heaven and Hell, which features the Dio era of the band.
Yeah,
Pretty good records, I thought.
dude, both those albums are
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah,
They're
I dig those.
in the live album. I listened to the live Heaven and Hell, like the one that's at Madison. It's like at what, Madison Square Garden or Brooklyn. It's at some big fucking place,
Yeah,
and I listened to that live. Dio sounds incredible on that, and it's crazy to think that he sounded that good and played that long with a fucking baseball sized tumor in his stomach.
yeah, dude. Yeah,
It's
that was
incredible.
yeah, yeah. Dio's a legend, man, in my opinion. You know,
Yeah, and he would too, like on during the Heaven and Hell stuff, like they would play for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then there was always a meet and greet afterwards, and he would be like right in just constant pain because of this fucking tumor, and his wife and the managers would be like, "Man, you just take a break," and he was like, he would just refuse no matter how much pain he was in to shake, and he told him, it's like, these people are the reason that I am who I am and the reason that I'm here. And I'm not leaving this place until every hand is shook, record is signed, and picture is taken. Do not bother me with this again. I will be fine, but this is not. I'm not going to stop until all of this is taken care of.
Yeah, that's like a rare person, man. You know,
Yeah,
I've always been a huge admirer of Ronnie James Dio for sure. So yeah, Heaven and Hell is sick. It's like Iommi, Dio, Butler, Ward, and also Bill was experiencing some issues as well. So Appice was part of this project as well.
yeah. And then they fucked them all over and brought in the drummer from Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, yep, that's right.
Which that dude is an incredible drummer, but if you're talking about like just you just have to shit on Bill Ward as bad as you did. Like they kept trying to say, "Oh, he can't play the parts," and then you see like Bill Ward's like, "I can play the parts," like playing them in his fucking jam room.
Yeah,
You know, and like, "Oh, Bill's so sick," and he was sick. I mean, he did have cancer.
yeah,
He did battle it and all that, but don't be such a fucking asshole, you know. And again, it's just like you're fucking this guy over, and everyone else is just like, sure, let it happen. Ozzy literally fucked over anybody that was ever in his band.
oh yeah,
You
big
know,
time, yeah, totally.
and Geezer and Tony are just like, two cogs in the same machine. They just work no matter what. They just work together. So they screwed Bill Ward over, more than a fucking few times. And I almost went to go see that tour with Brad Wilk on drums. And Brad Wilk is an incredible drummer. And he did a good job on it, but I just couldn't bring myself to go see something that was considered Black Sabbath when they had fucked Bill Ward over so hard.
Yeah, yeah. I caught a couple of those. There were several reunion tours, and I saw one of them out here in Jersey, the PNC Arts Center outside, like going back a while. And it's funny because like Ozzy, all right, I'm not gonna say Ozzy, but the vocals sounded great. Okay. Whatever was going on with the vocals that night sounded on point. And then literally a year later, I was watching Ozzy perform at Ozfest out in California when we played Ozfest, and he sounded it was so bad, dude.
Yeah.
Like, so something had to be going on with the vocals at the Sabbath Root show. It had to be tracks or something like that.
No, he has had a backup singer behind the curtain for years and years and years.
Okay.
When during one of Ozfest, it was I mean, it wasn't an Ozfest, it was an Ozzy tour. I was working at Roadrunner at the time. And this was like Ozzy, Typo Negative, Sepultura, and Fight, I think was the opener.
Oh wow. Okay.
And I've told this story. This was my run-in with Peter Steele, and I just remember, and that's a whole nother story. That thing with Peter Steele, it's funny as fuck, but it doesn't matter. They come to and it's outdoors, so we're all in the back hanging out, and then they started like, hey, everybody's got to clear out, and I'm just like, what the fuck, like. We're all just kind of having a good time, no one's doing shit, and they cleared the whole backstage area. So then as we're like clearing out, you see like, behind the curtain, there's like a fucking chair, microphone, all the, pages of, and I'm like, oh shit. And it's a fucking backup singer. It's a fucking singer that's singing all of his, they sing together.
Oh man. Dude.
And so then I'm all like, I start asking questions. So it turns out that dude has been there for a long time. And if you remember the band Kick Tracy,
oh Jesus,
the early to mid 90s, that's who's been singing Ozzy stuff with him for that time.
Isn't that band from like Florida or something like that? Kick Tracy.
They were fucking terrible, so I don't know.
I
remember
that band, man. I totally remember them. I
just remember that they had a song on Headbangers Ball, and it was terrible. And I was at Fort Hood at the time, and it was just like, I just remember every time that fucking video would come on, like that was the time we were gonna go like pick, because we were in the barracks, so the bathroom's down the fucking hall, so it's like, when you're at a concert and the fucking slow song comes on, that's your piss break.
Yeah,
That's when
totally.
that's when you're leaving. Let this fucking Kick Tracy fucking nonsense get out of the way. But yeah, he's had a backup singer for years and years and years and years.
Damn, I hope that guy got paid well then. Damn.
And also, I know that I know it's been a few years now, but like all that stuff kind of died out. And then like Ozzy had like a really good comeback and he was like, this is the healthiest I've been ever. And did like a tour and a record. And I think there was some Sabbath stuff attached to it too. Maybe the stuff with Brad Wilk on drums, but he was on TRT at the time.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, at least that too. For
Yeah,
sure.
he was on TRT because I remember seeing like a fucking interview and he was just like, oh yeah, they had got him on fucking TRT.
Yeah, why not?
Oh,
Fuck
dude,
it.
like you've already done every drug on earth.
Yeah,
Like,
why not TRT?
just get some fucking testosterone replacement therapy going on. Get your old body moving again. And that's when he started like talking more coherently and acting more because they got him on a TRT regimen.
That's funny, man. But yeah, dude, we did it. That's cool. We got all this done. Oh, and real quick, so their 20th album, The End, was canceled. So that would have been technically, I guess Sabbath never fulfilled their full contract, I guess.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah,
that they never did it.
Well, I would think why not just do it? I don't know, but it got canceled. I guess it wasn't worth it to spend the money and promote it and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, they're already talking about now. Like I heard something the other day that they're talking that Iommi's talking to Ozzy and Ozzy's open to do another Black Sabbath tour.
Wow, dude.
And I'm like, you just canceled like a fucking 90 some odd date world tour because you're not physically able to do it. But you want to renege on it all and say, if Tony's talking about it and I'm into it, we got to talk to the other people. It's just like, oh my fucking, like, stop.
Unbelievable.
I've seen Sabbath like a whole bunch of times, but I did see that original lineup, original reunion and Ozfest reunion, and both of those were fucking incredible. Like I saw it at the old Dallas Reunion Arena, and it was I can't remember who. I know the first opener was Pantera, and I don't remember who was at, but it was Pantera, somebody else, and then Black Sabbath, and just an incredible show. It was so fucking good. I still have like the tour book from that.
Oh,
time.
Nice, dude. Nice. Yeah. Yeah, I only saw Sabbath with Ozzy just that one time, man, like a few years ago. And that was it. I never saw any of the reunions in the 90s. I never went to any of the Ozfests back then. And yeah, that's it. That was it for me. I remember like wanting to go see, but being way too young to go to see the Dio version of the band because, I just listened on the radio. Oh yeah, the Black and Blue tour. Meanwhile, I'm like 12 years old or something. There's no possible way I'm going to be able to go to something like that.
Yeah, dude. I was like, if people were like, oh, if you could have a time machine, what would you go back and like get a winning lottery ticket or anything like that? Blah blah blah. I'd be like, no, I'd go back and see Dio era Ozzy, Dio era Black Sabbath somewhere.
Yeah, that would have been incredible to see him on like the Heaven and Hell or Mob Rules tours.
Oh, dude, it would have been so incredible. I saw Dio a few times in my life. I mean, I saw him twice on Lock Up the Wolves tour, both times in Germany, and it was just like one of those times he co-headlined with Metallica, and that was just one of the greatest shows of my fucking life. I was 18 years old, first time, in a foreign country, first time really being at a concert that big.
Nice.
And seeing like the greatest of all time doing it with like Metallica, and at that point in my life, like Metallica was my be all end all.
Yeah.
And just like, dude, it was a powerful experience. It was so fucking sick, dude. Oh, and Block Up the Wolves, Dio. That's like such an underrated fucking record too. Oh, that record's so good.
That's definitely a solid record, man. But I'm gonna try to see if I can dig up that Glenn Hughes box set, man. That'd be cool. That'd be great to have that. I'll take a look for it, see if I can find it somewhere for a reasonable
Well,
price.
it's Tony Martin, not Glenn Hughes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tony Martin. Yeah.
It's called like actually I got it here. I'll walk into the other room. I got it right here. It's called like Doria Domi or something like that.
Hmm.
Where is it? Okay. Oh, here it is. I forgot I moved everything. It's this right here.
Oh, hell yeah. There you go. Anno Domine. Nice.
Yeah,
That looks pretty sick.
but it's headless cross tier, cross purposes, and unfortunately, it's forbidden.
It's funny. Hell yeah.
Oh man. But
Well,
yeah,
dude, we got it done. And yeah, it was a blast, dude. Thanks for doing this.
hell yeah. I mean, we've been talking about it for a while.
Yeah.
We
Well,
just
yeah,
needed to get it in.
Yeah. That was great talking to you, man. And you know, we got to do this more often. And yeah, there's a couple of things, man, we were talking about doing together, which might be really cool. Like there's that one championship fight down in Atlanta. That's a possibility. There's like that King Diamond show. Gotta do a little traveling, man. Definitely gotta hang out in person at some point.
Yeah, I'm definitely into going to either doing the one fights or going to Boston on Halloween. Dude, Boston on Halloween for King Diamond would be insane.
I gotta check with the wife here. You know what I mean? I usually Halloween is like she's got some like very extensive plans for that sort of thing. So we're gonna see what the deal is. But yeah,
Maybe that plan is seeing King Diamond.
so that's what I'm trying to say because she's a fan, dude. We I got to bring it up with her and see if she's down. And because we went when we first started seeing each other a couple of years ago, we went to Merciful Fate together, and it was actually her idea to go. So that was pretty
Yeah,
cool.
it's fucking awesome. I saw the first date on that tour because it was in Dallas.
Yeah.
Because that's where King Diamond's been living for the last like 30, so well, probably more than that. I think he moved to the Dallas area in the 80s, late 80s, I think. But yeah. And you guys went to Misfits too, right?
We went to Misfits, we went to Danzig, you know, a bunch of great shows over the last year or so. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm seeing the Misfits next Saturday. They're playing here in Austin, and it's the day before my 53rd birthday.
Well, that's a great birthday sort of outing for you. That's awesome.
Gonna go spend it with Evil Elvis. The wife's even gonna go with me.
I could see that. Yeah. You know.
She usually doesn't go to many heavier shows. We usually go to more country stuff, but she's actually gonna go to this one.
Nice. Yeah. Well, dude, we got to get ready for a House of the Dragon season finale.
Oh
And,
yeah.
all right,
The
dude.
finale's tonight?
Tonight's the season finale. We got a whole thing set up for this evening. You know, some charcuterie, you know,
Oh,
and
nice.
I got to take a shower, you know, I got to get ready, you know.
You gotta put your dragon clothes on.
got to put my chainmail outfit on, you know. All right,
Yeah,
man.
I think we're making homemade beans.
Nice.
Watch some incestuous dragons.
Good deal, man. All right. Have a good night, man. Talk to you soon.
All right, brother.
Take care.
Later.
So